Blessings, everyone. I'm spiritualist, psychic, astrologer, and medium Ray Sette. Once again, I thank you for offering me this opportunity to come into your homes and to share with you my higher self's insights into the spiritual and astrological energies of July 2018. As many of you have heard me illustrate in the past, we are coming to our next eclipse season as we go through the summer months of July and August. In July we have a solar and lunar eclipse, and then again in August we have another solar eclipse. I'd like to begin by just touching upon some things which we have experienced in the past. Specifically, in December 2012, many of us leading up to that time heard of that time as being a time of destruction, doom and gloom, specifically coming from much misinformation through the media. I observed that it probably began around 2008, where we observed a lot of documentaries actually on television, on many cable stations, talking about the destruction, the doom and gloom, the ominous time that would befall humanity during 2012, and that there was possibly that would really indicate the end of the world as we know it. And surprisingly, December 2012 came and went, and we didn't necessarily observe any destruction in the outer world. What we understand was taking place at that time, the 2012 time period, and I won't get too involved in the technical aspects of what was taking place astrologically and otherwise at that time, but what really began at that time was an ascension process, meaning that humanity was given the opportunity to really abandon and dissolve the limitations of the third dimension and descend to a higher level of consciousness, which is in the fifth dimension. Now you notice we didn't talk about a fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is that dimension exists that is closest to the third dimension in the spirit realm. Many times when we talk about our loved ones who connect with us from the spirit realm, they exist in that fourth dimension. The fifth dimension is a level of consciousness that transcends the third dimension. That's where pure love exists, and we are being given that opportunity to ascend, to really experience and achieve that level of consciousness. And it began in 2012. However, the underworld, the dark forces, if you will, presented much fear and hysteria that would take place at that time. That misinformation was really intended for a derailment. It was intended for us to be distracted from really recognizing the blessings at hand and really observe the potential of fear, which, as we learned in the Course in Miracles, fear is nothing but an illusion, as all things in this third dimensional experience really are. They're just all illusions. And we were being derailed at that time from really recognizing the blessings at hand. And the blessings really were, in essence, the experience to ascend to a higher level of consciousness. Also, in 2014, there began the experience and the blessings to really recognize our power. The power to the people element really began in 2014, and that has to do with an alignment that was taking place from Pluto to the natal sun of the United States. The Pluto element connects with great power. It also connects with great destruction. If you can imagine the energy that is released during an atomic explosion, that's the energy that's connected to Pluto. That is energy at a low vibrational frequency. Try to imagine what the same magnitude of energy would be released if we released that energy from a place of love. And this is really the understanding that we the people, that each person specifically in the United States was being given the opportunity to recognize beginning in that 2014 time with the alignment which took place from Pluto to the United States sun in the astrological chart for the United States. And also too, what I would like to emphasize is that we have eclipses coming up, and if you have birthdays on or around the time of an eclipse, that energy will stay with you throughout the coming year and sometimes even longer. I always advise that we review the astrological energies at least 3 months up to a birthday, because whatever is aligning astrologically at the time of our birthday, that stays with us throughout the year. It gives us the backdrop of what we can experience during the course of the ensuing year. And I emphasize that because as we are coming to the birthday of the United States, which is July 4th, and I will add that this year, the birth year for the United States begins on July 5th. And you see, what happens is when we look at what's called a solar return chart, we look to the exact position that the sun was along the tropical zodiac at the exact moment of our birth, and that begins our year. And sometimes it could actually be the day before, the day of, or even the day after of the actual birth. But that experience, that begins our year, that sets the tone for what we may potentially experience during the coming year. It gives us a backdrop of the underlying energies of that year, and certainly we have to factor in a lot of other elements to really understand exactly what's taking place. And that's why I always emphasize at least 3 months before your actual birthday, we review the astrological energies. But also, to another PowerPoint is the halfway point, the half birthday, if you will, and that is when the sun is exactly 180 degrees away from the point that it was at the time of our birth. So if you also have a half birthday around the eclipses as well, these are also will be very prominent for you. The solar return chart for the United States, as I said, it is created for July 5th, the exact time at 5:28 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And what's prominent in the chart, it places the moon at the highest point of the astrological chart. One of the things I emphasized in my recent full moon forecast is that the moon was placed at the highest point of the chart. The moon in a mundane chart, such as a full moon or a new moon chart, represents the people, we the people. This placement of the moon at the highest element, at the highest point in the chart, is really offering us the opportunity that the power is with the people, that we the people have the power to create powerful, instrumental, and humanitarian change. And first we need to establish it within ourselves first. We can't expect things to change in the outer world unless we change first. Many of us wait for external circumstances to change before we change. However, the change have to first and foremost come from within ourselves, and this is what we've been given the opportunity to really recognize, especially in these last 4 or 5 years, that we are the facilitators of the change, and nothing will change in the world unless we change first. And this power to the people element is predominant, very much significant as we move through these times, specifically with the birth solar return chart for the United States, but also too for the new moon solar eclipse chart that is coming on July 12th. First, I would like to add that many of you have heard me refer to the balsamic moon phase of the chart. That is the preparation stage to really set the tone and clear the path for the energy that will come together for us on the new moon. The balsamic moon in July is on July 9th, and it's exact at 5:20 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. As I've said many times, that begins the period of clearing, cleansing, and purging that is preparing us for the next lunar cycle. With a solar eclipse, many times it's a 3-month window of opportunity, so it's a little bit longer because the eclipse sets up energies for longer periods of time. Generally, a new moon just goes month to month. Eclipse energies set the tone for about a 6 months time period, sometimes even longer, sometimes even years. It's really dependent upon the exactness and the specific alignments of the eclipse to our charts. And we always look at that specifically for us personally to really understand how it applies to us on a more personal level. Right now, I'm just offering some general insights to give you some inspiration as to what we may experience over the course of these next few months. And as I said, the balsamic moon begins on July 9th. That is the period of cleansing, clearing, purging, preparing us to clear the slate for the coming energies and the alignments of the new moon. Now, as I'm emphasizing, the power to the people element is very significant with the coming new moon solar eclipse. that connects with an alignment from Pluto. Now, earlier in the day on July 12th is the new moon solar eclipse. On July 12th at 6:04 a.m., there is an exact, what we call opposition alignment with the Sun and Pluto. In opposition, that's a full moon energy when two heavenly bodies are at opposite ends of the spectrum. That is a very powerful alignment. Think about how everything on a full moon, everything is heightened, everything surges on a full moon. Whenever there's an alignment with Pluto and the Sun that way, many times we see some unpleasant things happening in the other world. Sometimes we observe the possibility of others inflicting power, great power and destruction over us. For example, whenever there's been a significant alignment with Pluto and the Sun, we've always heard happenings of the ongoings that were taking place with, for example, like North Korea and their nuclear program. Which I also understand that could be misinformation that's really trying to keep us in a place of fear, because you notice every time we hear something like that, nothing really happens, and we just kind of go about our day until something else just comes to the surface again. What I want to emphasize, and what I would like to emphatically emphasize, is that we may be given experiences that have the desire by the dark forces, the underworld, to inflict fear into our consciousness and our subconsciousness. These experiences are trying to derail us from really recognizing the blessings that are taking place at hand, and that power to the people element is so predominantly strong right now, specifically with this alignment that is exact with the Sun and Pluto on July 12th, but it's also that much more exact when we look at the chart for the solar eclipse on July 12th. Now, the solar eclipse is at 10:48 p.m. That's Eastern Daylight Time. The solar eclipse, it's also a super moon. So these energies are even more intensified than on a regular new moon. And that power to the people element is very present for us to receive. And whenever I refer to power, it's power that is intended to be demonstrated from a place of love and humility. The power over others experience is dissolving in the outer world, and we are all being given the opportunity to certainly first and foremost become accountable and responsible for everything that we set in motion. The victim consciousness is dissolving. When we allow ourselves to recognize how we are creative beings, and that element of a creative being is also very prominent in this new moon chart, because the creative divinity aspect of the chart, which is the 5th house, not to get too technical, is where the new moon resides in the astrological new moon eclipse chart for the United States. As I'm emphasizing, we are creativity and divinity in motion, and we are very much given that opportunity to demonstrate that from a place of love and humility. The power over others element is dissolving, and we are very much being given this opportunity to recognize how we are instrumental in creating as well as miscreating all that we experience in this human form. This is a time to really recognize that God particle is in every one of us, and not from a place of ego, from a place of love. And when we demonstrate that, we recognize how we are instrumental and we are very much in control, if you will, of everything we experience in our lives. As we go through these next few months, as I've emphatically discussed on many times, be in the world and not of it. Recognize if there's any unpleasantries that take place in the outside world, they're coming to form at attempting to make one last ditch effort from the dark forces to instill fear in the collective consciousness of humanity. Do not give it any power. Nothing, absolutely nothing, including the government or the president, has any power over us, say the power we give to them. A a bigger cycle of experience, especially for us here in the United States, is that we are given the opportunity to really recognize the government's work for us. We are the ones who are creating and recreating this nation that we live in, and we are so very much being given the opportunity right now to know that from a place of love. And all of these wonderful things are very much coming together as we progress through this next eclipse season in July and August. Much of what I'm referring to right now is connecting with the solar eclipse super new moon on July 12th. And many times I talk about throughout the month and even any given day, there are sometimes thousands of alignments that take place, and we just really highlight and emphasize the ones that are the most significant. With that new moon Pluto alignment, we also factor in Jupiter and Neptune at the time with the new moon, and this alignment is such a benevolent blessing that's taking place that really is allowing us to offer us the opportunity to recognize we really truly are spiritual beings. We are connected to one another. We are very much intuitive, very much psychic, and those abilities, those potentials are there for us to use as tools for our well-being, so that we recognize that we aren't creating alone, that spirit is very much part of this creation process. It's a co-creative experience. And I always emphasize that spirit is always available for us, and we are being given the opportunity also to recognize that. However, spirit is not able to interfere with our free will. It can't do the work for us. It will always be there to assist us, to lovingly guide us and support us, and to inspire us, and to sometimes show us where we need to avoid something, but it can't interfere with our free will. That's why it serves a greater purpose for us to be clear and grounded, so that we recognize the opportunities available to all of us, to every one of us that comes through from spirit. We are creative divinity. We are spiritual beings enjoying a human experience. Remember, we're human beings. We're not human doings. And all of these wonderful things that I'm highlighting, I highlight because we are so now being given the opportunity to recognize this and to employ this understanding in our daily experiences. On July 22nd, the sun moves into the sign of Leo. That's July 22nd at 5:01 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Leo is the sign that connects most with creativity and divinity. And in past times, you've heard me refer to as we go through the August time frame, which I will talk about in my next video for August, that we have the opportunity to pass through what's called the Lion's Gate portal, which is specifically on August 8th. And it's about August 7th, 8th, 9th. And what that emphasizes is at that time, the sun rises with the star Sirius, which is in the dog star constellation. That's why we hear about the dog days of summer. It refers to Sirius in the dog star constellation. That's representative of two suns rising at that time. And that element, as I said, just opens up these portals for us to connect with divinity, our creative divinity, that is very much an evolutionary process for all of us. And as the sun transits the sign of Leo, we are offered the blessings to really recognize how we are creative beings, that creativity and divinity exist in all of us. And when we demonstrate ourselves as creative, we connect with divinity, and when we connect with divinity, we demonstrate ourselves as being creative. And creativity connects with all of us. It's not only specific to art and music, as some of us may understand. Creativity is infinite and unlimited. As the sun transits through the sign of Leo, allow yourself to really recognize how your own creativity is very unlimited. Our full moon lunar eclipse, which is a total lunar eclipse on July 27th, at 4:21 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we will not be able to observe this total lunar eclipse in the United States. However, the total lunar eclipse we have in January, it takes place after midnight, but we will be able to observe that. Not necessarily this one. The The total eclipse, it's in the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is a sign of great and powerful change. It's also the sign of chaos. As I said earlier, let's remember to be in the world and not of it. If we observe chaos taking place in the outer world, observe it from a distance and know that it is not part of your consciousness, and it will never interfere with your well-being if we do not allow it to do so. These dark forces are making their last-ditch efforts to keep us in a compromised state of well-being through instilling fear into every one of us. As long as we recognize that regardless of what happens in the outer world, we're connected to spirit, we're connected to light, we're connected to love, none of that will ever, ever, ever interfere with our well-being. And this is why during these times of the apocalypse and revolution, apocalypse and revelations, which is also very revolutionary, these are really what we heard of, but it doesn't connect with destruction. It connects with empowerment. It represents the revelations of how we've all been misled and perhaps kept in a compromised state of well-being. And I always suggest to never take my word for anything. I suggest allow yourself to decipher this and all information that I share with you. Recognize what resonates with you. Stay in a place of love and just allow yourself to be guided from spirit. As I said earlier, spirit is always available to us, to guide and direct us. And what I'd like to continually emphasize with the full moon we have on July 27th, in the sign of Aquarius, that is the sign of the humanitarian. When we all connect with humanitarian demonstrations, we also continue to facilitate great change in the world. And to fully facilitate that great change, we need to allow ourselves to recognize where there may be some continual dissolvement of darkness that may need to take place. So if you're recognizing and observing any fear or any darkness within yourself bubbling to the surface, it's only because you need to let it go. And once we allow ourselves to release those less than loving lower vibrational elements, that's what will pave the way for us to really experience the love, the desires, all the blessings that we certainly choose to experience while we are in this human form. So as we move through these next few months, always remember, stay in the light, in a place of love, surround yourself with love, clear your energy, keep yourself grounded, surround yourself as much as you can with high vibrational people, experience elements, get out in nature, connect with nature, cleanse yourself in the ocean. The salt water is a very cleansing, energetically cleansing experience because those negative ions help to dissolve the negative toxic energy that sometimes we accumulate in our energy field. Take a salt bath, enjoy a salt bath, meditate, connect with spirit, breathe every moment of every day. Just take a few deep breaths. If you find yourself just having a surge of fear, step back, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, maybe specifically 10 deep breaths, and just allow yourself to receive that light of love. And by doing so, no matter what unfolds in the outer world, remember, it's only an illusion. It's not necessarily a reality. In this realm of consciousness, in this third dimension, nothing is absolute. Once we transcend and progress and evolve to that fifth dimensional experience, there's only love. That's all that exists. And in spirit, that the only absolute element is love, and we are being given the opportunity to recognize that and enjoy that while we are in human form. Wayne Dyer many times referred to transformations as dying while you're still alive. Think about how dramatic is the experience when we drop the physical form and we transcend into the spirit dimension where there's really only love. And certainly however long it will take us to get to that point of love, it's really up to us. But we are given the opportunity to really drop the density of this physical third dimension. And while we are still living and alive in this form, experience love and transcend to that fifth dimension in all our experiences. Now, this certainly may not happen overnight, and it certainly might. We don't know. In spirit, time does not exist. In the spirit realm, it's all already happened. So I suggest to everyone, as I always say, stay in the light, stay in the place of love, offer yourselves great, wonderful, blessed care, and share that with everyone that you love. Once again, I'm Spiritualist Psychic Astrologer Ray Sette. Thank you so much for allowing me to share with you these insights, which I will always acknowledge and honor come through my higher self, that it's not me, I'm just the conduit, I'm just the messenger. So I trust that what I share with you helps to inspire you. If what I share with you resonates with you, that is wonderful. And if it does not resonate with you, that is also wonderful. Many blessings, everyone. Stay in the light, and I will see you again very, very soon. Much love to everyone. Namaste.